Listen, this situation just went from messy to completely out of control. What started as a private family issue has now exploded into full-blown chaos, and it all ended with Karlissa Saffold being arrested inside a hospital. Yeah, you heard that right. According to reports, Chrisean allegedly called the police on Blueface's own mother after she took baby Junior to get medical attention without permission. But here's where things get really disturbing. This isn't just about an argument. This is about a child who, at nearly 3 years old, reportedly still isn't walking or talking. And while doctors have allegedly raised serious concerns, Chrisean has publicly insisted that nothing is wrong. She says her son is just developing at his own pace. But not everyone is buying that. Because behind the scenes, insiders claim multiple people have tried to step in and get Junior the help he may need, and were all shut down. That includes Karlissa. So the big question now is, did she cross a dangerous line by taking the child without permission? Or was this a desperate move to do what nobody else would? Because what happened next, the hospital confrontation, the police showing up, and those handcuffs, might have just exposed a much deeper and more serious situation. And trust me, this story only gets worse from here. Because right after that shocking moment at the hospital, more details started coming out, and the timeline of what actually happened is raising even more questions. So, let's break this down step by step. According to multiple reports and insider claims, everything started when Karlissa Saffold allegedly made a bold decision, one that would change everything. She didn't just speak out online, she took action. The story goes that Karlissa had been growing increasingly concerned about Junior's condition for a while. This wasn't something that happened overnight. There had already been tension building behind the scenes, especially after Chrisean publicly addressed her son's development in a way that many people found alarming. When Chrisean went on record saying that her son was fine, despite admitting that he wasn't yet walking or talking, it immediately sparked backlash. But more importantly, it reportedly set off alarm bells for people close to the situation. And Karlissa was one of them. Now, instead of continuing to argue online, Karlissa allegedly decided to take matters into her own hands. Reports claim that she arranged to meet up under what seemed like normal circumstances. Nothing out of the ordinary at first, no sign that things were about to spiral. But then, everything changed. At some point during that meetup, Karlissa allegedly took Junior and left quickly. Not to run, not to disappear, but to take him somewhere very specific. A medical specialist. Now this is where the story splits, depending on who you believe. On one side, there are people saying this was a calculated move, that Karlissa planned this because she believed the child wasn't getting proper medical attention. On the other side, critics are saying this crossed a serious legal line because no matter the intention, taking a child without the mother's permission is a major issue. And that's exactly what Chrisean believed in that moment. Because as soon as she realized what was happening, she didn't stay quiet. She reacted immediately. Reports say Chrisean started calling, trying to figure out where her son was. And once it became clear that Karlissa had taken him to a hospital or specialist facility, that's when things escalated fast. Instead of waiting, instead of trying to resolve it privately, Chrisean allegedly made a decision that would take this situation to another level completely. She called the police. Now think about that for a second. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. The moment law enforcement got involved, everything changed. What could have stayed a private dispute suddenly became a public incident. And it didn't stop there. Because Chrisean didn't just call the police, she followed them. All the way to the hospital. And that's where the situation truly exploded. Witnesses and reports claim that once Chrisean arrived at the hospital, things got loud, chaotic, and very emotional. There were arguments, accusations, and a lot of tension in a place that's supposed to be calm and controlled. Imagine that scene for a moment. Doctors and patients around, staff trying to do their jobs, and right in the middle of it, a family conflict turning into a full-blown confrontation. Chrisean allegedly accused Karlissa of kidnapping. Karlissa, on the other hand, was reportedly focused on getting Junior seen by medical professionals. Two completely different perspectives, colliding in one intense moment. And then, the police showed up. Now once officers arrived, they had to make a decision based on what they were seeing and hearing in real time. And according to reports, that decision didn't go in Karlissa's favor. She was taken into custody. Right there. In the hospital. Handcuffed and escorted out. That image alone is what sent social media into a frenzy. Because people weren't just reacting to the arrest, they were reacting to what led up to it. Almost immediately, videos, posts, and reactions started flooding the internet. Some people were shocked that things had gone that far. Others were already picking sides. And just like that, this situation went viral. But here's the part that makes this even more complicated. Even after the arrest, the questions didn't stop. In fact, they only got louder. Because people started digging deeper into why Karlissa would even take such a drastic step in the first place. Was this really just a reckless decision? Or was there something more going on behind the scenes? Because according to insiders, this wasn't the first time concerns had been raised about Junior's health. There had reportedly been multiple attempts by different people to step in, to offer help, to suggest medical evaluations. And each time, those efforts were allegedly shut down. Now again, these are claims, not confirmed facts. But the consistency of those claims is what's making people pay attention. Because when multiple voices start saying the same thing, people start asking questions. And one of the biggest questions right now is this: why would someone risk getting arrested, risk facing serious charges, just to take a child to a doctor? That's not something most people would do lightly. Which is exactly why this story isn't as simple as it first seemed. Because on the surface, yes, it looks like a clear situation. A mother says her child was taken without permission. Police get involved. An arrest is made. Case closed, right? Not exactly. Because when you start looking at everything leading up to that moment, the interviews, the public statements, the reactions, the alleged medical concerns, it paints a much more complicated picture. And that's why people are so divided right now. Some are saying Karlissa went way too far. That no matter what she believed, she had no right to take that child. Others are saying the opposite. They believe she did what needed to be done, even if it meant putting herself at risk. And right in the middle of all of this is Junior, a child who didn't ask to be part of any of this, but is now at the center of one of the most talked about situations online. And if you think this is where the story peaks, it's not. Because once the internet got involved, and once more information started coming out, things didn't calm down. They got even more intense. Because once this situation hit the internet, people didn't just react, they started digging. And the deeper they looked, the more uncomfortable the story became. At first, most people were focused on the surface-level drama, the hospital incident, the arrest, the accusations. But it didn't take long before the conversation shifted to something much more serious. Junior's condition. Because suddenly, clips, interviews, and past moments involving Chrisean started resurfacing everywhere. And one specific moment really set things off. It was an interview where Chrisean openly talked about her son's development. In that clip, she admitted that Junior was still not walking or talking yet, but instead of expressing concern, she brushed it off. She insisted that every child develops differently, that her son was fine, that there was nothing to worry about. Now on the surface, that might sound like a parent trying to stay positive. But to a lot of people watching, it didn't come across that way. It came across as denial. And that's when the internet started to turn. Because parents, medical professionals, and even casual viewers began pointing out the same thing at nearly 3 years old. Not walking or talking isn't something you just ignore. Again, this isn't about attacking anyone. It's about what people are seeing and how they're interpreting it. And once that narrative started spreading, it added a whole new layer to the situation. Because now, Karlissa's actions weren't being viewed in isolation anymore. People started connecting the dots. They began asking, what if she did this because she felt like nobody else was stepping in? And that question alone changed everything. Because around the same time, more claims started surfacing. According to multiple online sources and alleged insiders, this wasn't the first time concerns had been raised about Junior's health. There were reports that people close to the situation had tried to help, suggesting therapy, medical evaluations, even connecting Chrisean with specialists. But those offers were allegedly rejected. Some even claimed that help was available, and still turned down. Now once again, these are allegations. But the pattern being described is what caught people's attention, because it painted a picture that was very different from what was being presented publicly. And then, things escalated even further. Because this is when those alleged leaked medical documents started circulating online. Now, let's be very clear here, nothing about those documents has been officially confirmed. But that didn't stop them from spreading like wildfire. According to those leaks, Junior may allegedly be dealing with multiple serious medical conditions, including developmental and neurological challenges. There were also claims suggesting possible exposure to substances during pregnancy, which could have contributed to those conditions. And just like that, the conversation went from concerning to alarming. Because if even a fraction of those claims were true, it would completely change how people view this entire situation. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a disagreement between family members. This became about responsibility, about accountability, about whether a child was getting the care they needed. And right in the middle of all of this, Karlissa Saffold started speaking out even more. She didn't hold back. In multiple posts and statements, she accused Chrisean of ignoring serious issues and refusing to take necessary steps to help her child. She talked about doctors. She talked about missed opportunities for treatment. She even referenced the importance of using available resources, like medical professionals, instead of dismissing them. And whether people agreed with her tone or not, one thing was clear: she was doubling down on her position. That this wasn't about drama. This was about the child. But here's where things get complicated again. Because not everyone was ready to support Karlissa. A lot of people pointed out that, regardless of her intentions, taking the child without permission still crossed a major line. And they're not wrong. Legally speaking, that decision opened the door to serious consequences, which is exactly why she ended up in handcuffs. So now, the public is stuck in the middle of two uncomfortable truths. On one side, you have a mother who insists her child is fine, despite growing concerns. On the other, you have a grandmother who allegedly took drastic action, believing she was doing the right thing. Neither side is simple. Neither side is clean. And that's what makes this situation so difficult to process. Because usually, in stories like this, there's a clear right and wrong. But here, it's blurred. And then, just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, more voices started entering the conversation. People who claimed they had first-hand knowledge. Former friends, associates, even individuals who said they had tried to help in the past. Some of them backed up the idea that there had been ongoing concerns about Junior's development. Others claimed that efforts to intervene were shut down repeatedly. And while it's impossible to verify every single claim, the sheer volume of people speaking out is what's making this harder to ignore. Because when multiple narratives start lining up, people start paying attention. And now, the focus is shifting again. Because beyond the drama, beyond the arrest, beyond the allegations, there's a bigger question starting to take over. What actually happens next? Because this situation isn't over. Not even close. Karlissa is reportedly facing serious legal issues after that hospital incident. And, depending on how things play out, this could go much further than anyone expected. At the same time, the spotlight on Chrisean Rock isn't going anywhere either. If anything, it's getting stronger. People are watching closely, analyzing everything, waiting to see what she does next, what she says next, and whether anything changes moving forward. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just internet drama anymore. This is real life, with real consequences, and a child at the center of it all. So as this story continues to unfold, one thing is becoming very clear: the hospital incident was just the beginning. And what comes next could be even bigger. And what comes next could be even bigger. Because now everything is starting to move beyond social media and into real-world consequences that could change all of their lives permanently. After the hospital incident, attention didn't die down, it intensified. More people started watching closely, waiting for updates, looking for any sign of what might happen next. And the truth is, situations like this don't just disappear overnight, especially when legal issues are involved. With Karlissa Saffold reportedly facing serious charges after the arrest, the focus has now shifted toward what authorities might do moving forward. Because when a situation involves allegations like kidnapping, especially involving a minor, it automatically becomes something much bigger than just a family dispute. At the same time, people are also questioning whether this situation could trigger further investigation into everything that led up to that moment. Because think about it. If concerns about Junior's health have been raised multiple times, if there are claims that medical care has been delayed or avoided, if there are even alleged documents suggesting deeper issues, then it's not unrealistic to believe that authorities could start asking questions too. Now, nothing has been officially confirmed in that regard, but the possibility alone is enough to keep people talking. And that's exactly what's happening. Meanwhile, Chrisean Rock has remained at the center of all this attention, whether she wants to or not. Every statement, every post, every appearance is now being watched and analyzed in real time. Because people aren't just reacting anymore. They're looking for answers. They want clarity. They want to understand what's really going on behind the scenes. But instead of clear answers, what they're getting is more confusion, more tension, and more division. Some supporters are still standing firmly behind Chrisean, believing that as a mother, she has the right to raise her child the way she sees fit. They argue that outsiders don't know the full story and shouldn't be so quick to judge. And that perspective is valid. Because at the end of the day, parenting is deeply personal. But on the other side, there's a growing group of people who feel like this situation has gone beyond personal choices. They believe that when a child's health could potentially be at risk, it stops being private. It becomes something that needs attention, something that needs action. And that's why this conversation isn't slowing down. If anything, it's evolving. Because now, people are starting to look at the bigger picture. They're asking questions not just about what happened at the hospital, but about everything that may have led up to it. The past decisions, the public statements, the alleged missed opportunities for intervention. All of it. And in the middle of all these discussions, one thing keeps coming back into focus. Junior. Because while adults argue, defend themselves, and take sides, he's the one person in this situation who has no voice, no control, no way to explain what he's experiencing. And that's what makes this so serious. Because regardless of who people support, regardless of which side they believe, everyone seems to agree on one thing: the child's well-being should come first. But the problem is, everyone has a different idea of what that actually looks like. For Karlissa Saffold, it allegedly meant taking immediate action, even if it crossed boundaries. For Chrisean Rock, it seems to mean trusting her own instincts and beliefs about her child's development. And when those two perspectives collided, we got that moment at the hospital. The moment that changed everything. Now, looking ahead, there are a lot of possible outcomes. If the legal case against Karlissa moves forward, it could result in serious consequences that affect not just her, but the entire family dynamic. At the same time, if more attention continues to build around Junior's condition, it could lead to increased pressure for medical evaluations or outside involvement. Again, none of this is confirmed. But these are the kinds of situations where things can escalate quickly, especially when the public is watching this closely. And right now, the spotlight isn't going anywhere. Because stories like this tap into something deeper. They're not just about drama. They're about responsibility, about family, about doing what's right, even when it's complicated. And that's why people are so invested. Because everyone is trying to figure out where they stand. Was Karlissa wrong for what she allegedly did? Or was she trying to step in when no one else would? Is Chrisean being misunderstood? Or is she ignoring something that needs to be addressed? These aren't easy questions. And the truth is, we may not get clear answers anytime soon. Because situations like this are rarely black and white. They're messy, emotional, full of layers that the public may never fully see. But what we do know is this: that moment at the hospital wasn't the end of the story. It was the turning point. The moment that brought everything into the open. And now that it's out there, there's no going back. Whatever happens next will likely unfold in front of everyone, piece by piece. More updates, more reactions, more developments. And with each new detail, the picture will become a little clearer, or maybe even more complicated. But until then, the conversation continues. The debates continue. And the attention stays locked on this situation. Because at its core, this isn't just about headlines. It's about real people, real decisions, and real consequences that are still playing out in real time. And something tells me we haven't seen the end of this yet. So, now that you know the full story, what do you think is really happening here? Was Karlissa right to step in and take Junior for medical attention, even if it meant risking arrest? Or did she cross a serious line that could have lasting consequences? And what about Chrisean? Is she a mom doing her best, or is she ignoring serious warning signs about her child's health? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now and let us know whose side you're on. Are you Team Karlissa, Team Chrisean, or just Team Junior, hoping he finally gets the help he needs? Your opinion matters, and we read every single comment. And if you want to stay updated on this story, because trust me, there's more to come, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to be covering every new twist, every development, and every shocking detail as it unfolds. You don't want to miss the next update. Also, smash that like button if you believe children's health and safety should always come first, no matter how messy family drama gets. Share this video with your friends so they can weigh in too, because everyone's talking about this situation. Finally, stay tuned for our next video, where we'll dive even deeper into what led up to this hospital confrontation, the leaked documents, and what could happen next legally. Make sure you're part of the conversation because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could be even crazier than what you just saw.